Welcome everyone to new video. In this video we will cover third move knight c3. So we'll start with sidelines and video by video, file by file. We'll move to more popular options. So knight c3 is not very popular. This is dubious move. It's often seen in club level games, so we should check it. Why knight c3 is not good? With knight c3, usually when white plays knight f3, white is staying flexible with his knight on b1, and sometimes later on white can play knight bd2 and play knight c4. With the knight already being on c3, white loses this flexibility, and also with knight f3, white is protecting this d4 pawn. Then after knight c3, this d4 pawn is vulnerable, so we can attack it. We play knight f6 first, obviously developing the knight. e5 is a very interesting option. It is possible to play it too, but requires some memorization after d5. Black is here slightly better, but I decided to go for knight f6, and anyways we will play e5 later on the next move. So we just change the move order. We play knight f6 first, and e4 is the main move. So white uh, takes control of the center. Bishop g5 is also possible. This was played in, I think, 200 games or something like that. So white wants to play um, e4 next and to take on c4. This is not a challenging move. In this line, black is slightly better. We play c6. The idea to meet e4 with b5, protecting this pawn, and if we can finish the development with knight bd7, e6, bishop e7, will be just better. We're up a pawn, so white has to do something about this b5 threat. That's why a4 is here the most popular move. Let's just see what happens if white plays e3 with the idea to take on c4. We play b5, protecting this pawn, and we will follow up with moves like bishop b7, knight bd7, e6, bishop e7, castle, finish the development, and after it, we are better, we are up a pawn. So the sample line could be knight f3, bishop to b7, bishop e2. This bishop is good on b7, because after we finish development, we'll most likely play c5, and this bishop will be quite strong on this long diagonal. So don't worry, it's not misplaced. It will be our strongest minor piece after we play c5. But before that, we need to finish the development, of course. So knight bd7, short castle, pawn to e6. So we just want to play bishop e7 and castle. White has finished development, so he should start attacking us. a4 is one way to do that, but we can just play a6, defending this pawn, and we don't have weaknesses in our camp, so there is no target for white to attack anything. Our position is rock solid. So queen c2, bishop to e7, e4, and short castle. And black is better. We are up a pawn. We can play h6 next, attacking this bishop. h6 is always useful to include in this type of positions. h6 to kick this bishop out from g5, and we can continue uh, playing in the center. So that happens after pawn to e3, and that's why a4 is the most common move. We can't play b5 because it's attacked 2 times by a4 pawn and by c3 knight, so that's why a4 was played to not allow b5. And here there is one very good move that I want you to keep in mind, to memorize. Uh, so what's the drawback of white's play? White developed the knight and the bishop, but generally in the opening part, the rule is to develop uh, knights first and then the bishop, because bishop is a long range piece, so it's already active on c1. Like if you want to compare, this knight on g1 is not doing anything, but the bishop on c1 already has a few squares under the control. So that's a basic opening rule. And here we can see that uh, white played with the bishop, not with the knight first, and we can punish this mistake by playing queen to a5, attacking the bishop and also threatening knight e4 to attack the c3 knight. So queen a5 is a very important move to remember. White has two options, two good options. Knight f3 is the most natural option, but bishop d2 also seems to be challenging, so our queen is under this pin. There's no concrete way to make use of it. Like knight d5, we can take the knight. Knight e4, white is not doing anything with knight e4. So that's why this only seems dangerous, but actually it's not. So we can continue with our plan, and we play pawn to e5, opening up this bishop and also challenging the center. Knight f3, e takes d4, so white doesn't have pawn in the center anymore. Queen c5, this happened in one game. Attacking this knight and defending c4 pawn in advance. Bishop e3, queen h5, not to be under pin anymore. Bishop f4, knight bd7, e4, and after the queen trade and bishop b4, black is slightly better since we are up a pawn, and with bishop b4 we did not only develop the bishop, but also we made a threat of knight takes c4. This pin is very annoying, so bishop takes c4, we can meet in, with knight takes c4, and black is slightly better. There is no need to go deeper into the line. So knight f3, white develops the knight and protects the bishop, but this move does not stop us from playing knight e4, attacking the bishop and the knight on c3. bishop d2 is the only move, but here uh, white gives up the bishop pair. We have a chance to take one bishop, the dark squared bishop, and if we have a chance to do that, we should take the bishop. Knight takes d2 and pawn to e5. Again, this move, you will very often see this e5 move in 3 knight c3 line in this variation, because white did not um, take e5 under control immediately, like with knight f3. Instead, he played knight c3, which allows us to play e5. And yeah, here e5 is a thematic pawn push. Knight takes c4, queen to b4. Attacking this c4 knight, b2 pawn is very vulnerable. d4 is under serious pressure. White has two logical moves, e3 and e4. e4 is not as good as e3, since d4 is not protected by the pawn, and it allows e d4, queen d4, and bishop to e6, putting even more pressure on the c4 knight. Next, we can continue with knight d7, bishop c5, attacking the defender of c4 knight. We can castle long, and black is better here. So e3 is more solid. White keeps d4 defended by the pawn. So it's not a good idea to take on d4, since we'll trade this active e5 pawn for this passive one on e3. Instead, here I recommend bishop to e6, just developing the bishop and attacking this knight on c4. And if white takes on e5, we can take on b2, attacking this knight, and white is in trouble after bishop b4. If we're attacking this c3 knight, we can castle short, play knight d7. Here, black is slightly better, if not better. So to sum up, if here white plays bishop g5, we can create a strong counterplay on the queen side with, well, obviously b5 if allowed, but if a4, and then with queen a5, attacking this bishop, making knight e4 possible. So with counterplay, with e5, bishop b4, putting a lot of pressure, and every move comes with tempo. Like queen a5 is attack, forcing move. Knight e4 is also forcing move, attacking this knight. e5 is forcing move, attacking d4. Bishop b4 too, attacking c3 knight. So if white plays knight c3, you should punish him from not developing naturally, and you should play actively, aggressively. Though e4 is a way more common move, white grabs the whole center, but here we fight for the center with e5 move. So again, this thematic pawn break. Knight f3 is the main move here. D takes e5 is not a good move. d5 is also possible. So we will cover these three options. Let's start with the worst one. At d takes c5. D takes c5 allows us to take on d1, and it's uh, very bad situation for white. White has to take with the king, because if he takes with the knight, we can take the pawn on e4. It can follow up with bishop b4 check, ruining white's king position. Anyways, castle, and with quick development. White is forced to take with the king, but this allows knight g4, double attack, attacking the f2 pawn and the e5 pawn too. So we will get the pawn back with great position. We can follow up with bishop e6, knight c6, and long castle again. Develop with check, and if king c2, even knight b4, once again a check. So forcing move, we improve our pieces with tempo. D takes c5 is the worst option. Let's check d5. d5 here. Black has some choice. I decided to show you a bishop d6 move. b5 is the most common move here, and I would say it's the best, but again, you need to memorize some lines in order to be better. But as I said, for this course, I tried to stick to normal, healthy lines, no forcing lines, no memorization, just simple play, simple and reliable variations. So b5, you need to know some stuff here at night, but knight takes b5, knight takes c4. So how to play against knight c3, how to play against this bishop c4. You can play bishop c5, so d6, crazy positions, very messy. So there is no need to get into forcing lines against 3 knight c3. Instead, I decided to recommend bishop d6. So our plan is very simple. We want to castle, play a6. So let me make arrows, a6. Of course, white's plan is to take on c4 with a bishop, to play knight f3 and to castle. Our plan is to castle, play a6 and b5. To play b5 if allowed, bishop b7 and c6 to fight for the center this way. White can uh, stop us from playing b5 with a4, but then it weakens b4 and we will change our plans. But this is basically our main idea, to castle, play a6 and b5 if allowed. So let's see. Bishop takes c4, a6. We play a6 immediately. The idea to play b5. a4 is the best move, but let's see what happens if white ignores our threat. If white plays knight to f3, here we can play pawn to b5. As I said, if we are allowed to play this move, we should play it immediately. So b5, bishop to d3, defending this pawn. Bishop b3, other bishop retreats can oftentimes run into b4 and knight takes c4. So that's why bishop to d3 is the most solid way of the best way to retreat the bishop. Defending this e4 pawn. We castle, white castles, and bishop g5 is white's idea, so that's why we play pawn to h6, not allowing bishop g5. And why is this move so important? It's very important since we are going to play c6. This is our idea to trade this d5 pawn so that white won't have this space advantage. And after d c6, knight takes c6. We can see a few changes in the pawn structure. Of course, there is no pawn on d5, and our knight is active on c6. And d5 square can become potentially weak. The same is for d4 square. So it's a battle for getting control of these squares. And our defender of d5 square is this knight on f6. So if after c6, d6, knight takes c6, white can play bishop g5 and trade this bishop for our knight, he will get access to d5 square very easily. So that's why bishop g5 is actually a serious positional threat. We stop bishop g5 with h6, and only then, when we are sure there is no bishop g5, this annoying piece trade, we'll play c6. Bishop e3, and pawn to c6. Attacking this d5 pawn, forcing white to take on c6, but we can recapture with a knight. And after rook c1, bishop b7, we get a very balanced, equal position with chances for both sides. Then our plan could be rook c8. It's equal position, no? Rook c8. We will fight for this d4 square. So let's get back here and see what happens if white plays pawn to a4. So we can't play pawn to b5 anymore. So we castle, knight to f3, and since we couldn't go for the queenside attack, we change our plans and we go for the kingside attack. Here I recommend the bishop g4, pinning this knight and the queen, and after castle we play knight bd7. So all of our minor pieces are perfectly placed. e4 is a weakness in white's camp, so we will attack it. We'll attack it with knight c5, but before playing knight c5, we will play bishop to b4. Why bishop b4? We want to eliminate the defender of e4 weakness, and we are doing exactly that with bishop b4 by taking on c3, and then we will get our knight to c5 to put even more pressure onto this pawn. So bishop e2 is very typical for white to unpin his queen, and as I said, bishop b4, threatening bishop takes c3 and knight takes e4. White can play queen c2, defending this pawn, but still, after bishop c3, bc3 and knight c5, we are putting a lot of pressure on this pawn, and it's hard for white to defend it properly. So here engine says the position is equal, but I would definitely rather be black here. We have a clear target, while white plan is not clear to me. So this all happens in case white plays pawn to d5. As I said, bishop d6, we go for a6 b5 plan. If white stop us with a4, then we attack on the king side center with bishop g4, knight d7, knight c5. Now let's take a look at the knight f3 move, the most popular option. Here we take on d4, queen takes d4, queen takes d4, knight takes d4. By the way, here if knight takes d4, this allows bishop c5, and we'll take on d1, ruining white's king's position. So that's why queen takes d4 is more common. Anyways, we trade queens. And again, we play bishop c5, so this is this knight takes d4, bishop c5 is just better version for us, better version of the main line. Bishop c5, attacking this knight. White has two possible options. One is bishop e3, so developing the bishop and attacking the knight. And white would like to follow up with short castle. And there is more aggressive choice. It's knight from d to b5, attacking this c7 pawn. So against this move we play knight a6, defending the c7 pawn and threatening c6 to kick this knight out from b5. And if we can play c6 and b5, well, we just a pawn up. So white has to do something concrete. He can't just sit tight and wait. White can play bishop to f4, attacking this c7 pawn. We play pawn to c6. Anyways, we wanted to kick this knight from b5. Knight to d6. Bishop takes d6. Bishop takes d6. And we play bishop e6. So we develop the bishop. We are defending this c4 pawn. And if allowed, we will castle long next. White can try e5. We can just retreat the knight back to d7. We will follow up with long castle, knight to c5. Again, engine says this position is equal, but I would say 90% of players would rather be black here, since we are up a pawn and we have knight c5. Okay, white has some compensation. He has a bishop pair and this strong bishop on d6, but it can easily get kicked out with f6 and then knight e5 or knight c5. So um, black is fine here. Let's move on to bishop e3 move. White develops the bishop and wants to continue with long castle. He also has some threats of knight b5, attacking c7 and bishop on c5 like discovered attack. There is downside of this move. The downside is that it's vulnerable to knight g4. We're attacking this bishop. And if white loses the dark squared bishop, dark squares will become extremely vulnerable. And good news, white can't save the dark square bishop. So white has two moves. knight d5, which is more challenging, but still um, at the end of the line, black will be slightly better. There is bishop takes c4, simple move. After knight takes e3, fe3, and knight d7. Black is slightly better. We have bishop pair advantage. We have better pawn structure. White has these doubled pawns, isolated doubled pawns in the center, which are very bad. We'll follow up with knight e5, improving our knight, attacking the bishop. c6 is a very important move to restrict the knight jumps to d5 and b5. We'll follow up with bishop g4, castle. It's pleasant to play such positions where white has weaknesses and you're the only one who is pressing for the win. Knight d5 is a bit more challenging when white is threatening to take on c7, but after knight takes e3, f takes e3, knight takes c7 is a mistake here, because after king d8 this knight is trapped. So right now, just at this moment, white is up an exchange, but this knight we will take it. You don't have to take it immediately. It's trapped here, so we can take it in 10 moves, in 15 moves. We'll take it. It's trapped. So long castle, engine suggests long castle because this knight is trapped here, so it's hanging anyways. But after bishop d7, rook takes f1, and king c8, black is winning. We'll play knight a6, take this knight eventually, when we'll have two minor pieces for rook, but also have strong bishop pair and pawn majority on the queen side. So f takes e3 is the best for white, but after king d8, we're defending the c7 pawn, and knight d7, black is slightly better. We'll kick this knight out from d5 with the move c6. We'll play knight to e5, plays the king on c7, and black is slightly better. So this knight c3, in high level games you won't see it very often. It's a dubious move, but thematic pawn break which you need to remember is this e5, but we play knight f6 first, and we strike in the center with e5, since white didn't go for knight f3. Here, if white plays knight f3, we'll transpose to 3 knight f3, fourth move silence. So I have covered this. We will see it later on in one chapter. It's a transposition to what we will see in next videos. But e4, it's important to remember this e5 pawn break. So in the next video we'll move on to the central variation. So stay tuned.